Thelonious Monk has one of the coolest names in jazz, and that's his real name. Um, so he was a jazz pianist from originally from North Carolina, but he seemed to spend most of his career in New York, as far as I can tell. His career spanned from the 1940s to 1973. He spent quite a while being unappreciated because he has a very odd style of playing the piano. Um, for example, a little nugget that I enjoyed. In 1948, he was showcased to play a week at the Village Vanguard. Now, I'm picking up while doing these reviews that the Village Vanguard was a very prominent jazz venue in New York in the 50s and 60s, potentially as well, I think. So he did this, he was billed for this showcase for a week at the Village Vanguard, and nobody turned up at all, apparently. So he was recognised and hailed as a genius. He's one of the few jazz musicians to have made it to the cover of Time magazine, and he's had a decent number of recordings.
Hi, my name's Dan. So this is an album of jazz featuring Thelonious Monk, who's a pianist. It's probably my first time listening to it, but I have come across Monk before. It's small band jazz. There's Monk on the piano, there's saxophone, there's drums, and there's an upright bass. And it's the fourth Thelonious Monk album that I've reviewed on this channel. So I feel like I've got my ear in. As in, I think I've learnt, I might be wrong, but I feel like I've learnt how to listen to his kind of style of piano playing. This isn't an unusual idea for me that you need to learn to listen to different styles of music. And as I get more experience with some of these styles of music that I'm reviewing, because part of the whole point of me doing this is to broaden my horizons, I'm starting to understand more of what's going on in the music. So he's got an unusual piano playing style. He is widely thought of as being a genius by people who understand jazz. I'm not going to claim to be one of those, but he does stuff that other people don't do, and let's try and pick that apart technically. So he doesn't just play with notes and have unusual notes that you wouldn't imagine, and harmony, so unusual harmonies going on. But he also plays with the timing, so he plays notes when you don't expect them, as well as what you don't expect, and he plays with what I can best describe, I think, as accuracy. In other words, he sounds like he's missing the notes, or partly missing the notes, in that he often plays kind of two notes at once, or I think maybe even three sometimes. So it's like hitting the keyboard, and it's not just the one note that he's hitting, as if he's making a mistake. I think what he's doing is that he's actually challenging the idea that you should only play that note and not miss it. But it sounds initially when I first heard him, I thought he was just making mistakes. But he's sometimes when he plays bits, things like some of the runs that he plays, they're so smooth and accurate that I've come to think that actually he is, of course, doing this on purpose, but he's doing a challenge for things in music that other people don't do, or not that I know of. So it's quite distinctive. I think I kind of get it. It's sort of interesting, but I'm not yet sure that I'm happy to say I enjoy listening to his style of piano playing. I would describe it as being angular, and I use that word angular to mean the opposite of smooth, so it's kind of jarring in some ways. I do think it works better in the context of a band, and the band do a good job of not being put off by him. I kind of feel like at times maybe they're just not listening, and that makes it work well because they're fairly set straight as far as jazz is concerned. They're not as off the wall as he is with his playing. So, for example, point. He's just playing little bits of backing with like two notes, three notes, etc. here and there. It's just not what you'd expect, but particularly it's not when you'd expect. They're just in, on the offbeat or in a strange, partway through a bar or something. Yeah. But that's Monk. It all makes sense, or it seems to, in his own little Monk world. Um, the tracks are what I call bookended. So they tend to play the tune at the start, do some improvisation, play the tune again at the end. Three of the eight tracks are not his compositions, so the tunes are possibly more recognizable as tunes. His own tracks, you can't, when you hear it repeated, you can hear it's a repeated thing, but the tune is in itself somewhat unusual. And this is a way that jazz was going at this time anyway, is that the kind of original compositions had these tunes, but they were not what you think of as a tune that you can memorize and sing, and they'd be kind of weird and strange numbers of bars and changing, and all this modal stuff. Couple more things to throw in about this. I felt like the recording of the piano could have been better. I don't know if it was a particularly not great piano. So either the piano or the recording wasn't great. It's a bit kind of tinny and thin in some ways. Another thing is that, and I've noticed this before with his music, is that sometimes you can hear him vocalizing along with what he's playing. So you can hear the note not just on the piano, but he's kind of singing it a minute, so that kind of vocalizing. And I think the last thing I want to say is out of the four Monk albums featuring Monk, I think it's probably the most accessible that I've heard. So if you want an introduction to what his kind of playing's like, this might be a good way into it. The rest of the band are playing what I believe is known as hard bop. I don't really know what the parameters are, so basically I just saw that described. I have noticed that hard bop is jazz that there's quite a bit of freedom, but isn't as chaotic as avant-garde or free jazz. And it seems to be about somewhere at my limit of what I enjoy in terms of freedom in jazz. I've enjoyed hard bop quite a bit in the past. So this is all right. It's, as I say, the big feature is his unusual playing. It's not as extreme as it is on some of his other albums. Um, and it was okay. But I'm not a jazz fanatic. I don't fully understand what's going on here. And maybe if I did, I'd appreciate it more and go, oh, what a piece of genius this album is. I'm not, I'm more of an average kind of person. So, yeah, I mildly enjoyed it. And as always, at this point, I'd like to invite you to tell me what you think of the album. If you'd like, please share a score that you would give it if you want. And that's it from me for now.